Hello students, today we will start with economic environment. After reading this unit, you should be able to understand economic environment, differentiate the various structures of economic systems, understand various economic policies of a nation. Business is an economic activity that has and will continue to influence mankind the most. Almost every citizen of the world obtains his or her bread and butter from some sort of business. Either he is himself engaged in business or his earnings because somebody else is engaged in business. A deeper analysis reveals that the basis of international relations is also business. It is difficult to say whether the Iraq war is a political issue or an economic one because of the oil factor. It is also equally difficult to say with certainty that China is coming closer to India because it realizes India's political importance or because of our growing economy. If we look at world politics and economics, we find that they are two sides of the same coin, and at any given point it is very difficult to determine which affects the other. If we see at the events in the erstwhile USSR, we notice a close-knit relationship between politics and economics. Because of pathetic economic conditions and prevailing starvation among the common people, Russia rose in revolt. Thus, economic conditions resulted in a political revolt and a change in environment. The new government believes in an entirely different ideology of communism, imposed a communist economic system. Therefore, because of political changes, the entire economy of the USSR underwent a change. So, in order to understand economics, one should first understand the political system of the world. Man is a social animal, born, brought up, and live until death in society. Performs economic activities to satisfy his unlimited needs with limited resources which have alternative uses. Human life is influenced by various environmental factors such as economic, social, political, cultural, religious, and natural. So, first of all, what is economic? Economic means pertaining to the production and use of income. Economic activities involves earning money and spending it for satisfying our needs and wants. Now, what is environment? Circumstances, influences, stresses, and competitive, cultural, demographic, economic, natural, political, regulatory, and technological factors called environmental factors that affect the survival, operations, and growth of an organization. The structure of the economy. In modern economies, phases are somewhat differently expressed by 4 degrees of activities. First one is the primary stage. It involves extraction and production of raw materials such as corn, coal, wood, and iron. A coal miner and fisherman would be workers in the primary degree. So anything that involves extraction and production of raw materials confines to the primary degree or primary stage. The secondary stage, it involves the transformation of that raw material that we have fetched in the primary stage or intermediate materials into goods. Example, manufacturing steel into cars or textiles into clothing, so that the shape can be given to the product that will be more useful, that can be put in different uses, that will be helpful for the consumer. In the second stage, we transform the raw material into a finished good that will be of a high value, that will be beneficial for the consumers to consume the product, and that manufacturing or transformation of the raw material into a finished good comprises of the secondary stage. A builder and a dressmaker would be workers in the secondary stage degree. At this stage, the associated industrial economy is also subdivided into several economic sectors, also called industries. Industries is nothing than the combination of the various firms belonging to the same or producing the same types of products. Their separate evaluation during the industrial revolution phase is dealt with elsewhere. Third one is the tertiary stage. It involves the provision of services, or we can say that these are the production of invisible items that cannot be touched, felt, to consumers and businesses such as babysitting, cinema, and banking. A shopkeeper and an accountant would be workers in the tertiary degree, as they are not transforming any raw materials into finished goods, or they are not involved in fetching the primary goods such as raw materials. They are producing those services that can be used by anybody for enhancing the satisfaction. That would involve anything from the babysitting to entertainment to say having a better experience like in cinema halls, etc. Quaternary stage, it involves the research and development needed to produce products from natural resources and their subsequent byproducts. A logging company might research ways to use partially burned wood to be processed so that the undamaged portions of it can be made into pulp for paper. Note that education is sometimes included in this sector. Various environmental factors such as economic environment, socio-cultural environment, political, technological, demographic, and international affect the business and its working. Out of these factors, economic environment is the most important factor. We have discussed these environments in detail in the previous sections. Like the economic environment, factors involve all the determinants of the economy in its state. In environmental analysis, these are the factors that can conclude the direction in which the economy might move. So businesses analyze this factor based on the economy of the host country of the business or the country to which it wishes to expand to. It helps to set up strategies in line with any potential changes. Some determinants can be the inflation rate, the interest rate, disposable income of buyers, credit worthiness, credit accessibility, unemployment rates, the monetary or fiscal policies, the foreign exchange rate. The social factors includes such as the cultural implications, the gender and connected demographics, the social lifestyles, domestic structures, educational levels, distribution of wealth. These factors can have the most influence on the popularity of a business because they dictate how strongly business is intertwined. They are perhaps the most important to consider when a business wants to market its offerings effectively. Political factors include the political forces that are governing the country. It also reads the global political conditions, effects on the country and business. When working on this factor, it is important to assess the governmental policies and regulations regarding the industry you operate in to find barriers as well as opportunities. Some political factors during an environmental analysis are government policies, taxes and tariffs, stability of government, entry mode regulations, etc. The technological uh, factors involves the advancement of technology, the rate at which it involves and transforms its exponential. The advancement naturally greatly influences businesses performing environmental analysis. Including this factor will help stay up to date with the occurring changes. Technology alters every minute. This is why companies must connect it all the time. Firms should integrate when needed. Technological factors will help in identifying opportunities or even limitations to your business growth. Firms can use these factors in the environmental analysis for their benefit. New discoveries, rate of technological obsolescence, rate of technological advances, innovative technological platforms. If a business accurately identifies all the technologies it can implement to grow operations and to increase productivity in a sustainable fashion, they have done their environmental analysis very well. Then the demographics involve the kind of population living in the country, and the international aspect will define the impact of international business environment on the business decision making. All these affect the business and its working. Out of these factors, economic environment is the most important factor. Now, what is economic environment? Those economic factors which have their effect on the working of the business is known as the economic environment. It includes system, policies and nature of an economy, trade cycles, economic resources, level of income, distribution of income and wealth, etc. The economic environment represents the economic conditions in the country where the international organizations operate. So, if we are talking about the economic environment of a country, we take into consideration these aspects. Say, if we are talking about the nature of any economy, say the nature of Indian economy. Uh, Indian economy is a mixed economy, which means that a part of the economy is owned by private businessmen, industrialists, and entrepreneurs. The other part is managed by the government. The Indian economy is highly dependent on the service sector. There is a predominance of agriculture in Indian economy. Indian economy is uh, defined as an economy that is developing. There is a huge scope of increase in the income level. So we can see that most of the international organizations are considering India as a growing economy, so they always want to invest money in the economy, in this economy, so that the ROI or the return on investment is quite high in India. Indian economy is the major proportion of the income still lies with the agriculture. It's slowly transforming. The dominance of the GDP comes from the services sector, which is around 60% of the total, and the agriculture now become the second largest sector that is contributing to the GDP. If we are talking about the sectors contributing to the Indian economy, since the independence of India, the agriculture sector has been constantly decreasing while the service sector has increased gradually. Also, the industrial sector had improved as well. Agriculture sector contributes 14% to total GDP of the India. Crops, horticulture, milk and animal husbandry, fishing, aquaculture, apiculture, sericulture, forestry, and other associated activities are included. Second is industry. The industrial sector or the manufacturing sector contributes 27% of the total GDP of India. It comprises a variety of manufacturing and other subsectors. Then the service sector contributes 59% of the total GDP of the India. It encompasses construction, retail, software, information technology, communications, hospitality, infrastructure, operations, education, healthcare, banking and insurance, as well as many other economic activities. Economic environment refers to the aggregate of the nature of economic systems of the country, business cycles, the socio-economic infrastructure, etc. Economic environment is very dynamic and complex in nature. It does not remain the same. It keeps on changing from time to time with the changes in the economy, like change in government policies, political situations, etc. Features of economic environment. It is directly related with economic activities. The impact of non-economic factors, impact of basic infrastructure, impact of ideology of the people, availability of capital, economic disparities, directives of the government, economic planning, ideology of the government and the economic system, public morality, etc. If we are talking about the salient features of the Indian economy is still on the list of the developing economies of the world, owing to extremely high levels of illiteracy, unemployment, poverty, and so on. Despite so many problems around the nation to be solved and encountered on a daily basis, the Indian economy has a low GDP compounded by the following issues: poor infrastructural development. As per a recent report, India needs almost $100 million in infrastructure to ensure the entire population benefits from electricity, gets safe drinking water and proper sanitation facilities. Imperfect market. The Indian market has a lot of easily exploitable loopholes. With an improper supply chain, the prices in the market vary significantly at different locations. Low per capita income. The revenue of a country is highly dependent on the purchasing power of the population. The more they spend or purchase products, the more is the increment in the revenues of the nation. However, to spend, the population must earn more and must be able to fulfill their basic needs. Only then can they manage to purchase other facilities and comfort. Therefore, per capita income is one of the key factors. High rate of population growth. With a vast population comes the requirement of resources. India is the world's second largest country in terms of population. This population needs education, food, transportation, water resources, employment and other basic necessities to contribute to the development of the nation. As the resources are not available in sufficient quantities in India, it is highly challenging for the nation to develop, and if this continues, the nation will be in a perpetual developing stage. Poverty, it has been said, a nation will be poor if it is poor, and this is an endless loop. Such loops of poverty always hinder the progress of a country and are a major issues for a country to be reckoned as a developed nation. Unadvanced technology. Most of the work done in India is labor intensive work. Thus, there is a huge gap between the technology required in the industries and what is in use in the country. Income disparity. The concentration of wealth in the country is highly focused and is possessed by 1% of the population of the nation. This 1% of the population owns 53% of the wealth within the country. Therefore, poverty is one of the important points that the government needs to highly focus on. Agro based economy. The Indian economy is highly dependent on the agriculture sector. This sector adds up to almost 14% of the total GDP of the country, and more than half of the population of the country is dependent on this sector. Capital formation. The average income of a person in India is very low, and the GDP of the country is dependent on this. Therefore, there is a significant need for improvement in the rate of capital development. Social issues. Indian society is referred to as a backward society. This is due to communalism, a highly male dominated social structure, a regressive caste system, and other malice. The components of economic environment. First one is the income and wealth. Income in an economy is measured by GDP, or the gross domestic product, GNP, or the gross national product, and per capita income. High values of these factors shows a progressive economic environment. Employment levels. High employment represents a positive picture of the economy. However, there are many forms of unemployment, including partial unemployment and disguised unemployment. Productivity. This is the output generated from the given amount of inputs. High levels of productivity support the economic environment. Elements of economic environment. It has mainly five main components: economic conditions, economic system, economic policies, international economic environment, and economic legislations. Economic conditions. Economic policies of a business unit are largely affected by the economic conditions of an economy. Any improvement in the economic conditions, such as standard of living, purchasing power of public, demand and supply, distribution of income, etc., largely affects the business of the size of the business market. Business cycle is another economic condition that is very important for a business unit. Business cycle has five different stages: the prosperity, boom, decline, depression, and recovery. Following are the mainly included in economic conditions of a country: stages of business cycle, national income, per capita income and distribution of income, rate of capital formation, demand and supply trends, inflation is measured by taking a basket of goods and comparing the prices of two intervals and adjusting the changes in the intrinsic basket. Thus, there are different measurements of inflation depending on the basket of goods selected. The most common measures are of the consumer inflation, producer inflation, and GDP deflators or price indices. Then, the industrial growth rate, exports growth rate, interest rate prevailing in the economy, trends of the industrial sickness, efficiency of public and private sectors, growth of primary and secondary capital markets, size of the market, etc. Now, the economic systems. An economic system of a nation or a country may be defined as a framework of rules, goals, and incentives that controls economic relations among people in a society. It also helps in providing framework for answering the basic economic questions. Different countries of the world have different economic systems, and the prevailing economic system in a country affect the business unit to a large extent. Economic conditions of a nation can be of any one of the following type. First one is the capitalism, the economic system in which business units or factors of production are privately owned and governed is called capitalism. The profit earning is the sole aim of the business units. Government of that country does not interfere in the economic activities of the country. It is also known as free market economy. All the decisions relating to economic activities are privately taken. Examples of capitalistic economy are England, Japan, America, etc. Socialism. Under socialism economic system, all the economic activities of the country are controlled and regulated by the government. In the interest of the public, the first country to adapt this concept was Soviet Russia. The two main forms of socialism are democratic socialism. All the economic activities are controlled and regulated by the government, but the people have the freedom of choice of occupation and consumption. And totalitarian socialism, this form is also known as communism. Under this people are obliged to work under the directions of the government. Then the third one is the combination of the first two, that is the mixed economy, the economic system in which both public and private sectors coexist is known as mixed economy. India is the perfect example of the mixed economy. Some factors of production are privately owned and some are owned by the government. There exists freedom of choice of occupation and consumption. Both private and public sectors plays key roles in the development of the country. Now the economic policies, government frames economic policies. Economic policies affects the different business units in different ways. It may or may not have favorable effect on the business unit. The government may grant subsidies to one business or decrease the rates of excise or custom duty, or the government may increase the rates of the custom duty and excise duty tax rates for another business. All the business enterprises frame their policies keeping in view the prevailing economic policies. Important economic policies of a country are as follows. First one is the monetary policy. The monetary policy is formulated by the central bank of a country to control the supply of the cost of money, that is the rate of interest, in order to attain some specified objectives. The fiscal policy, it may be termed as budgetary policy. It is related with the income and expenditure of a country. Fiscal policy works as an instrument in economic and social growth of a country. It is framed by the government of a country and it deals with taxation, government expenditure, borrowings, deficit financing, and management of public debts in an economy. Foreign trade policy, it also affects the different business units differently. For example, if restrictive import policy has been adopted by the government, then it will prevent the domestic business units from foreign competition, and if the liberal import policy has been adopted by the government, then it will affect the domestic products in another way. Foreign investment policy, the policy related to the investment by the foreigners in a country, is known as the foreign investment policy. If the government has adopted liberal investment policy, then it will lead to more inflow of foreign capital in the country, which is ultimately results in more industrialization and growth in the country. The industrial policy of a country promotes and regulates the industrialization in the country. It is framed by government. The government from time to time issues principles and guidelines under the industrial policy of the country. The global or international economic environment. The role of the international economic environment is increasing day by day. If any business enterprise is involved in foreign trade, then it is influenced by not only its own country economic environment but also the economic environment of the country from or to which it is importing or exporting goods. There are various rules and guidelines for these trades which are issued by many organizations like World Bank, WTO, United Nations, etc. Economic legislations, besides the above policies, governments of different countries frame various legislations which regulates and controls the business. Objectives of economic environment. First one is the proper functioning of an economy, knowledge of new opportunities and resources, study of environmental factors, removal of obstacles and challenges, changeable use of environment, optimum use of environment, and the minimizing the ill effects. Now we move on to the classifications of the economic environment. First one is the microeconomic environment. It includes the economic environment of a particular industry, firm or household, and is primarily concerned with price determination of individual factors. The main consideration from a microeconomic perspective is the efficient allocation of resources, and this is necessary to maximize total output. Second is the macroeconomic environment. It includes all the economic factors in totality. The main consideration here is the determination of the levels of the income and employment in the economy. Over the course of the 20th century, the focus has shifted from cities and countries to global economy, being the chief economic unit. The factors affecting the economic environment of a nation as well as the world is impacted by inflation and deflation. Inflationary and deflationary pressures alter the purchasing power of money. This has a direct impact on consumer spending, business investment, employment rates, government programs, and tax policies. A high level of inflation in the economy lead to fall in the purchasing power of money. Thereby, people are not being able to fulfill their needs and requirements, and the value of the money falls. Next factor is the interest rates. Interest rates determines the cost of borrowing and the flow of money towards businesses. Exchange rates, this impacts the price of the imports, the profits made by the exporters, and investors in employment levels. Next one is the monetary and fiscal policy. This helps in attaining full employment, price stability, and economic growth. The economic environment is also influenced with the various political, social, technological factors. These include a change in government and development of new technology and business tools. Hope you get the thorough knowledge about the topic. Thank you.